Hey everyone, I'm here with your 114 lesson. How can I organize information? Sorry, there's such fly still. A famous frog jumping contest takes place each May in Calaveras County, California. For more than 80 years, contestants have been entering large bullfrogs into the contest. The frogs measure at least 4 inches long. The purpose of the contest is to see which frog can move the farthest in 3 hops. Each year, people travel from around the country and sometimes the world to see the frogs jump. In this lesson, scientists have come to the fair to study the frogs. You will ask questions and analyze data about some of the frogs in the contest. As you work, you will choose a strategy for organizing the information. You will try to find a good way to show patterns. As a team, you will share ideas about how to represent the data and will work together to describe it as completely as you can. 124. Jumping Frog Jubilee. When it is time to compete the Jumping Frog Jubilee, the frog is put on a starting pad. The frog hops 3 times, then the distance is measured from the center of the starting pad to the end of the 3rd hop. This measurement is the official jump length. The chart below shows data about the 8th place frogs in 2008 and 2009. Later, your teacher will show you a chart of data with all 8 of the best frogs from each of those years. A. Before you look at the rest of the data, think about what else you could learn about the frogs and their jumps from the numerical data. With your team, brainstorm questions that you could use the numbers data to answer. For example, you might ask, what was the longest jump? Use the following bullet points to help your team come up with as many questions as you can, at least 4. So using these, what could the numbers tell us about all the frogs as a group? What could the numbers tell us about the frogs in just 2008 or just 2009? And what could we ask to compare frogs from 2008 to frogs from 2009? So go ahead and come up with 4 questions. You could just put them in this area right here. Okay, you should have come up with your 4 questions. Oh, I'm sorry, and there's one on the back, my fault. What could we ask to compare the individual frogs? So you could write 4 questions if you haven't done so. B, as a class, discuss the different questions each study team wrote, then look over the data from the contest in the lesson found 114A resource page. Decide which questions can answer the data and which you cannot. So since you're at home doing this by yourself, you can only look at your 4 questions, but you can look at this data page that is provided in your resource page or your research packet. Okay. And you can decide which questions you can answer from the data this data right here that I'm showing you and which you cannot. So you might have to look at your own page because mine all does not fit on here. Then C, I'm on C now. With your team, choose 2 of the class questions to answer. Follow the guidelines below as you choose. Choose one that requires using all the numbers to answer the question. Choose one that can be answered using just some of the data. Think carefully about how to organize the data in order to find the answer. Write your conclusions in complete sentences. So I want you to choose 2 of your questions, one that uses all the numbers and one that just uses some of the numbers, and answer that down here. Answers in complete sentences. Okay, once you have done that, we're moving on to question 125. Different ways of presenting data can tell you different things. For example, some of your questions might have been easy to answer with an organized table of data. However, other questions can be easier to answer if the data is arranged in a different way, such as a histogram, like the one shown below. Look carefully at the graph. Use it to answer the questions below. So your questions are, between which 2 numbers on the graph did the most frogs jump? Typical frogs jump between what 2 jump lengths? Were there any unusual long or short jumps? How many frogs are represented on this histogram? And half of the frogs jumped less than how many inches? So go ahead and pause the video and answer these questions. Okay, if you're back with me, you've answered these questions. So the first one, between which 2 numbers on the graph did most frogs jump? We're looking down here at jump length, and we're looking for the tallest bar. So the most frogs jump between 220 and 230 inches. B says typical frogs jump between what 2 jump lengths? So frogs jump between 210 and 240. Okay, That's where a majority of the frogs are jumping, between 210 and 240. Were there any unusually long or short jumps? So looking at the graph, do we have any unusually short or unusually long? So these are what we're looking at. Yes, one short jump. And then we also have one long jump. And again, I'm getting all of this information just by reading this graph. Part D says, how many frogs are represented on this histogram? So we would have to see number of frogs over here. This is what we're using. So there's 1, 2, so that's 3. And then there's 8, so that's 11. Then there's 4, so that's 15. And then there's 1, so that's 16. So 16 frogs. Half of the frogs jumped less than how many inches? So we have 16 frogs and we would need 8. So half of the frogs jumped less than how many inches? Where's over half? Well, this is 8 right here. And what's the highest? It's 230. So half of the frogs jumped less than 230 inches because less than 8 is over here. Okay, we have 4 and then we have 1, so that would be 5. That is it for your lesson today. If you have any questions, please make sure you ask.